The first message arrived on a Tuesday. I was sitting at my desk at work, pretending to focus on a spreadsheet that meant nothing, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know what you did at the Harrison party. $10,000 by Friday or your boss gets the video. My blood turned to ice. The Harrison party. 6 weeks ago. The biggest mistake of my life. I had been drunk. Drunker than I'd been in years, drowning my sorrows after finding out my fiancé had been cheating on me for our entire 2-year relationship. I had gone to my coworker's birthday party, planning to have 1 drink and leave early. Instead, I had ended up having 7 drinks, cornering my married boss in a hallway, and kissing him. Just a kiss. A stupid, drunken, 5-second kiss that I had regretted immediately and that he had gently shut down before walking away. But apparently, someone had recorded it. Someone had been watching. And now someone wanted to destroy my life. I paid the $10,000, emptied my savings account, told myself it was a one-time thing, convinced myself that this would be the end of it. It wasn't the end. 2 weeks later, another $15,000. You know the drill. A month after that. Your landlord might be interested in knowing you lied on your rental application. $20,000 keeps that quiet, too. They knew everything. Every skeleton in my closet. Every small lie I'd ever told. Every moment of weakness that I thought had been private. It was like they had been watching me for years, cataloging my mistakes, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I was hemorrhaging money, drowning in fear, jumping at every shadow, flinching at every unknown number, living in a constant state of paranoid terror. And I couldn't tell anyone. That was the worst part. The isolation of carrying this secret, of smiling at work while my life crumbled, of pretending everything was fine while I slowly fell apart. By the time I met Daniel, I was a shell of myself. It was a Sunday afternoon at a bookstore, one of those rare moments when I had managed to escape my apartment and pretend to be a normal person doing normal things. I was reaching for a book on the top shelf, when another hand reached for the same one. "Great minds," said a voice beside me, warm with amusement. I turned and my breath caught. He was tall, over 6 feet, with short brown hair that had a slight wave to it, and eyes that were somewhere between green and gray. His jaw was sharp. His smile was easy, and he was looking at me like I was the most interesting thing he'd seen all day. "You can have it," I said, pulling my hand back. I wasn't really sure I wanted it anyway. "Then we should both get coffee while we figure out who wants it more." He extended his hand. Daniel Cross. I should have said no. Should have made an excuse and retreated to the safety of my lonely apartment, where no one could hurt me. But there was something about him, something warm and steady, that made me want to believe just for a moment, that good things could still happen. "Vivian," I said, shaking his hand. "Vivian Clark." "Well, Vivian Clark." His smile widened. "Let me buy you that coffee. And the book. Consider it an apology for almost stealing your literary discovery." Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into exchanged numbers. Numbers turned into texts that made me smile for the first time in months. Good morning messages, random observations about his day, questions about my life that seemed genuinely curious, rather than probing. Daniel was perfect. Attentive without being smothering. Successful without being arrogant. He ran some kind of consulting business that he was vague about, but he was clearly wealthy enough to take me to restaurants I couldn't afford, and slip his jacket over my shoulders when the night got cold. More importantly, He made me feel safe. When I was with Daniel, I forgot about the blackmailer. Forgot about the terror that had become my constant companion. For a few hours at a time, I was just Vivian, a woman falling for a charming man who seemed to be falling for her too. "You seem tense sometimes," he said one night, 3 weeks into our relationship. We were curled up on his couch, and his fingers were tracing gentle patterns on my arm. "Like you're carrying something heavy." "Just work stress," I lied. "You know how it is." "I do." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "But you don't have to carry it alone. Whatever it is, I'm here. You can tell me anything." I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to. The words were right there, pressing against my teeth, desperate to escape. But how could I explain that I was being blackmailed, that I had kissed my married boss while drunk, that someone out there had a video that could destroy my career and my reputation? Daniel was too good. Too perfect. He would leave if he knew the mess I had made of my life. So I said nothing, and I let him hold me. And I pretended that everything was fine. The demands kept coming. $15,000 here, $10,000 there. I was running out of money, running out of options, running out of time. I started taking on freelance work at night, just to keep up with the payments. I stopped buying anything that wasn't essential. I lived on rice and fear and the fleeting moments of happiness that Daniel provided. "You've lost weight," he observed one evening, concern furrowing his brow. "Are you eating enough?" "I'm fine. Just busy." "Let me take care of you this weekend. I'll cook. You'll rest. We'll pretend the outside world doesn't exist." He was so kind, so attentive. Every time I thought about telling him the truth, I imagined the look on his face when he realized who I really was. Not the put-together woman he'd met at the bookstore, but a scared, broken thing paying off a blackmailer with money she didn't have. He would leave. Anyone would leave. So I kept lying, and he kept being perfect, and the weight of my secrets grew heavier every day. The night I discovered the truth started like any other night at Daniel's apartment. We had dinner. We watched a movie. We ended up in his bedroom, tangled together in the way that had become familiar and comfortable over the past 2 months. He fell asleep afterward, the way he always did, quickly, peacefully, like a man without a care in the world. I couldn't sleep. The latest demand had come that morning. $25,000, the largest yet, and I had no idea how I was going to pay it. I lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning with impossible calculations. That's when I noticed his jacket. It was hanging over the back of a chair, and something was buzzing inside it. Not his regular phone. I could see that on the nightstand. Something else. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But the paranoia that had become my constant companion wouldn't let me ignore it. What if it was related to his business? What if he was in trouble, too? What if I wasn't the only one with secrets? I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake him. My fingers found the jacket, found the inside pocket, found a phone I had never seen before. A burner phone. Cheap, disposable, the kind you buy with cash when you don't want to be traced. My heart was pounding as I pressed the button to wake the screen. A message notification glowed in the darkness. I scrolled through the texts, read them once, twice, 3 times, my brain refusing to accept what my eyes were seeing. They were my messages. Every threatening demand I had received over the past 6 months, sent from this phone. Every response I had sent. The pleas, the payments, The desperate promises to keep paying. All of it. Catalogued in a conversation history that proved beyond any doubt that the man sleeping in the bed behind me was the one who had been terrorizing me. Daniel was my blackmailer. Daniel, who brought me flowers and cooked me dinner and held me when I cried. Daniel, who asked about my stress and offered to carry my burdens. Daniel, who had been causing those burdens all along. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't do anything except stand there in the moonlight, staring at the phone that had just shattered every good thing I thought I had found. Vivian? His voice came from the bed, sleep-rough and confused. I heard the sheets rustle as he sat up. Heard him register that I wasn't beside him, that I was standing across the room, that something was very, very wrong. "What are you—" He stopped. I heard the moment he saw what I was holding. "Vivian, wait. Let me explain." I turned around slowly. He was sitting on the edge of the bed now, his face illuminated by the city lights coming through the window. He looked scared. Good. He should be scared. "Explain what?" My voice was remarkably steady, considering my heart was breaking. "Explain how you've been blackmailing me for 6 months. Explain how you took $80,000 from me while pretending to fall in love with me. Explain how every kind word, every gentle touch, every perfect moment was just part of some sick game. It's not. It started that way. But it changed. It started that way." I laughed, and the sound was ugly and broken. "So, you admit it. You targeted me. You found my secrets and you exploited them, and then... What? You decided to seduce me too? Make the game more interesting? I was hired." He stood up, his hands raised like I was a wild animal he was trying not to spook. "Vivian, please listen to me. I was hired to gather information on you. That's what I do. I'm an information broker. People pay me to find things out. Someone paid me to find your weaknesses." "Who?" "I don't know. They worked through intermediaries. All I knew was that I was supposed to find leverage on you and use it to extract money. The money didn't even go to me. I took a cut, but most of it went to whoever was behind this." "So, you're not just a blackmailer. You're a blackmailer for hire." I shook my head. "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No. Nothing about this should make you feel better. What I did was unforgivable." He took a step toward me, and I stepped back. Pain flashed across his face. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being a job. The bookstore, that was supposed to be a calculated approach. Get close to you, learn more about your vulnerabilities. But then you smiled at me, and you made that joke about the book. And I... Don't! My voice cracked. "Don't you dare tell me you fell in love with me. Not now. Not after everything. I'm telling you anyway, because it's true." His voice was raw. "I fell in love with the person I was hired to destroy. Every moment I spent with you made me hate myself more. Made me hate what I was doing. I've been trying to figure out how to stop this. How to tell you the truth without losing you. You've already lost me." I threw the phone at him. He caught it reflexively, flinching. "I want my money back. All of it. And then I never want to see you again. Vivian, don't." I was crying now, tears streaming down my face. "Don't say my name. Don't pretend you care. Just stay away from me." I grabbed my clothes and fled. Didn't bother putting them on properly. Just clutched them against my chest as I ran out of his apartment, into the elevator, out of the building, and into the cold night air. I walked for hours. Walked until my feet ached and my tears dried, and the sun started to rise over the city. Walked until I was too exhausted to feel anything anymore. Everything I had believed was a lie. Every moment of happiness I had found in the past 2 months was built on manipulation and cruelty. The man I had been falling in love with didn't exist. He was a character played by a professional predator who had been paid to destroy me. And the worst part, even now, even knowing what he was, some stupid part of me still missed him. I didn't go to work that week, called in sick, turned off my phone, hibernated in my apartment with the curtains drawn. I waited for the next blackmail demand, certain that Daniel, or whoever was really behind this, would escalate now that I knew the truth. Instead, I got a letter. Not a threatening one. A package, delivered by courier, containing $87,000 in cash, more than I had paid, and a handwritten note. I sold my car and my watch. This is everything I have. It doesn't make up for what I did, but it's a start. The person who hired me, I'm going to find out who they are, and I'm going to stop them. Not because I expect your forgiveness, but because you deserve to know who wanted to hurt you and why. I know you don't believe me, but I love you. I've never said those words to anyone before, and I understand if you never want to hear them again. But they're true. They're the only true thing about me. I'm sorry. For everything. Daniel. I stared at that note for a long time, cried over it, crumpled it up and threw it away, then fished it out of the trash and smoothed it flat again. I wanted to hate him. It would have been easier to hate him. But somewhere beneath the betrayal and the anger, there was still that flicker of feeling. The memory of how safe I had felt in his arms, how seen I had felt when he looked at me. Was any of it real? Could love built on lies ever be rebuilt on truth? 2 weeks later, I got a text from an unknown number. Different from the blackmail phone. I checked. I found them. The person who hired me. You're not going to believe who it is. Can we meet? Public place. Your choice. I'll explain everything. If you never want to see me again after this, I'll respect that. But you deserve to know. I shouldn't have gone. Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was a trap, another manipulation, another layer of games I didn't understand. But I needed to know. I needed to understand why someone had targeted me, and despite everything, some small part of me needed to see his face again. I chose a coffee shop in a busy part of town, sat where I could see all the exits, waited with my hands wrapped around a cup of tea that I didn't drink. Daniel walked in looking worse than I'd ever seen him. Shadows under his eyes, stubble on his jaw, clothes that looked slept in. He saw me and stopped, like he was afraid to come closer, like he expected me to run. "Sit down," I said. "Talk." He sat across from me and slid a folder across the table. "Your ex-fiancé, Richard Mercer. He's the one who hired me." I opened the folder. Bank records, emails, a paper trail that clearly showed Richard paying for Daniel's services. Richard, who I had caught cheating. Richard, who I had left without giving him a chance to explain. Richard, who had apparently spent the last 6 months trying to destroy me. He was obsessed with the idea that you would expose his affair, Daniel said quietly. His wife comes from old money. If she found out he'd been cheating, he'd lose everything in the divorce. He decided to preemptively ruin you, destroy your finances, your career, your credibility, so that even if you tried to tell anyone, no one would believe you. I wasn't going to tell anyone. My voice was hollow. I just wanted to move on. I know. I figured that out pretty quickly, but by then I was already in too deep. And then I met you, and everything got complicated. I closed the folder, looked at him, really looked, for the first time since I'd found that phone. He seemed smaller somehow, less polished, more human. Why did you tell me the truth? You could have kept the act going forever. Because I couldn't stand lying to you anymore. Because every time you trusted me with something real, I felt like I was dying inside. Because... His voice broke. Because I love you. And love isn't supposed to feel like this. Like you're constantly betraying the person you care about most. How am I supposed to believe anything you say? Every word out of your mouth could be a lie. It could be. You have no reason to trust me. But I handed you the evidence against Richard on a silver platter. I gave you back every dollar, and then some. I'm sitting here, completely vulnerable, with nothing to offer you except the truth, and a hope that it's enough. It wasn't enough. How could it be? How could any amount of truth make up for months of terror? But I was so tired. Tired of being afraid. Tired of being alone. Tired of carrying secrets that were crushing me. I need time, I said finally. I can't just forgive you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you, but I'm not going to disappear either. I just need to figure out what I feel. That's more than I deserve. I know. He reached across the table, then stopped himself before touching me. Can I ask you something? What? When you were with me, the real moments, when we were just talking or laughing or being together, did any of that feel real to you? I thought about the bookstore, the coffee that turned into dinner, the nights on his couch, watching bad movies and arguing about pizza toppings, the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. Yes, I admitted. That's what makes this so hard. It felt real. All of it. It was real. For me, at least. The feelings were real even when everything else was lies. I stood up, gathering my coat. I'll call you. When I'm ready. Don't contact me before then. I won't. I walked out without looking back. But I kept his number. And the folder. And the crumpled note that I had never quite managed to throw away. It took 3 months. 3 months of therapy, of untangling my feelings, of learning to tell the difference between the trauma of what he'd done and the reality of who he was trying to become. 3 months of him keeping his distance like he promised, never pushing, just waiting. I used the evidence to confront Richard, told him that if he ever came near me again, his wife would receive a very interesting package. The look on his face was almost worth everything I'd been through. Almost. And then, one rainy evening, I found myself standing outside Daniel's apartment building. He buzzed me up without asking questions. Opened his door looking like he hadn't slept in days, like he'd been waiting for something he'd stopped letting himself hope for. "You came," he said. I came. Neither of us moved. The rain pattered against the windows. The space between us felt enormous and impossibly small at the same time. "I'm still angry," I said. "I don't know if I'll ever not be angry. What you did caused real damage. Financial, emotional, all of it. You don't just get to apologize and make that disappear. I know. But I've spent 3 months trying to hate you, and I can't. I keep remembering the way you looked at me, the way you made me laugh, the way you held me like I was something precious." My voice cracked. I keep remembering that even when you were lying about everything else, that part felt true. It was true. It is true. He stepped closer, slowly, giving me time to retreat. I didn't. I know I don't deserve a second chance. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But if you're willing to try, I will spend the rest of my life proving that the man you thought you loved is who I actually want to be. Not the blackmailer, not the information broker, just Daniel. Just someone who loves you more than he's ever loved anything. If you ever lie to me again, I won't. If I find out there's anything else you're hiding, there isn't. I swear on everything I am. I looked at him, this man who had been my tormentor and my comfort, my enemy and my love. This man who had done unforgivable things, and then torn his life apart trying to make them right. This is insane, I whispered. We're insane. Probably. He reached out and cupped my face in his hands, gentle like always. But I've never wanted anything as much as I want to be the man you deserve, even if it takes forever, even if I fail. I kissed him. Or he kissed me. I'm not sure who moved first. All I know is that his lips were on mine, and his arms were around me, and I was crying and laughing at the same time. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Forgiveness would take longer, would take years of rebuilt trust and proven change, and moments where I would flinch, and he would have to earn me all over again. But it was a start. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony, no guests, just us and an officiant who didn't ask questions. We wrote our own vows, and mine included the words, "You were my nightmare before you were my dream. I choose to live in the dream." His made me cry. I spent my life learning how to destroy people. You're the one who taught me how to love them instead. I will spend the rest of my days being worthy of your impossible forgiveness. That was a year ago. Now we have an apartment with a view of the city that used to feel like a prison, and now feels like home. He runs a legitimate security consulting business, still using his skills, but to protect people instead of hurt them. I finally got that promotion I'd been working toward, because without the blackmail draining my finances and my sanity, I could actually focus on my career. We still have hard days, moments when the past creeps in, and I look at him and wonder who he really is. He's patient with those moments, gives me space when I need it, reminds me, with actions more than words, that he's not that person anymore. My blackmailer turned out to be the man I was falling for. It should have been the end of us. Instead, impossibly, it was the beginning. Some love stories start with a spark. Ours started with a betrayal, burned through forgiveness, and somehow emerged as the realest thing I've ever known.